employer saying, oh, I trust that Ralph's going to show up and work all week. That's not the way it works. I think we need to get production first. I think we need to be more accountable. We need to stop the wasteful spending and stop writing blank checks to ghost companies in the state of Michigan with no accountability to you. You guys all want to know where your money's gone. And no one sitting up here can tell you where a single penny has been, where it's been spent. So yes, we need to bring the accountability back, and we need to be more transparent with our tax dollars, because that is your money, not ours.
Thank you very much, Tom Leonard. This is a topic that's obviously been in the news over the last few weeks.
So once again, there's a plan in here, the path forward. In fact, we had 500 of these printed before this. If you want a copy, come out to our car, we'll give you one for free. Bottom line is this: the state should never be picking winners and losers and giving money up. I'm already done.
Yes.
I was gonna say, I've given a lot of my time up already. The state should never be paying companies up front. The Mackinac Center ran a study a few years ago. It was called the Detroit Free Press Front Page Promises. Over a 20-year period, companies had promised 120,000 jobs were going to be created here in the state. 10,000 of them materialized. Our plan calls for actually eliminating the MEDC, get it out of the business, sending out these subsidies, and we call for creating the Michigan Business Action Center. And what would it act as? It would actually act as a customer service center for all businesses across this state. So for instance, you won't have to be a multi-billion-dollar company to utilize it. If you are a young couple in Mississippi and you want to move to Michigan, you want to move to Sparta, and you want to start a coffee shop, you call there and they're going to say, hey, the village manager is James Lauer, who's back there. We can put you in contact with him. Here are some of the hoops you might have to jump through. It is going to be a customer service center that helps all businesses. Again, the days of us doling out hundreds, if not billions of dollars to select companies, picking winners and losers, is wrong. It has to end.
Thank you very much. Eric Nesbitt, same question about these corporate handouts.
In Governor Whitmer's Michigan, she can't even bribe companies to come here. She spent nearly $5 billion on bribing companies that haven't produced any jobs. And you think Jocelyn Benson's going to change things next year? No. This is why I've always been consistent on opposing corporate welfare and these business subsidies. You've got to get back to economic gardening. When you look at the last few years with the repealed right to work, increase the state's income tax, put on the bureaucratic red tape to prevent jobs from being invested in. A few years ago, there was a company trying to invest 20 miles away from the Indiana border down in Cassopolis. Aluminum company. $140 million investment, 80 new jobs. Not a dime of state money. 3 months after the opening, they called me and said, we can't open up. We can't even start the groundbreaking. Why? They couldn't get a permit from MDOT. MEDC said that's not their problem. It's an MDOT issue. Took 10 days to get a permit to actually do a curb cut for that kind of investment. Capital follows the path of least resistance. And when you look at it, as I talk to employers around the state, they say the biggest difference doing business in Michigan compared to Indiana or Tennessee is that actually the government offices in Tennessee answer the phone and call them back and work on a solution. Here in Michigan, they can't even get anybody on the phone. Day one, every state worker comes back to the office, butts in the seat, just like President Trump did. MEDC is done. They're a corrupt organization, giving away money to Whitmer's special friends and handouts. Those kind of favors need to end, and we need to ban Chinese companies from buying our farmland. That's how we work to make sure job providers can make it here in Michigan.
Mike Cox, same question about these corporate handouts.
Thank you, Dave. I want to follow up on something Eric brought up. He brought up a term called economic gardening. And that's where you focus on creating good conditions so that anyone can thrive. And if you have an idea that's a weed, it will die. But if you have a great idea, it will grow up. That's what Michigan has lacked. Right now, Governor Whitmer is all about hunting and gathering for bounties. So she gives $800 million to Ford Motor Company because it looks cool and maybe it might pan out. $600 million to GM in Delta Township. And of course, we've seen what has happened. And of course, she was going to give money to Goshen, and we've seen what's happened. Here's the reality. Forget about the current Ford Motor Company. What governor or legislature could have predicted what Henry Ford would have done? Who would have predicted what Elon Musk would have done? And my point simply is this: governors and legislators don't have the skills or talent to pick out winners and losers. It's time we end that, and we create the gardening. How do we do that? We remove the tax burden. Do you know that the income tax is a corporate tax on small business? If you're a small business, you're taxed at the same rate as the income tax. And so if you remove that burden, you can create more jobs. You can invest more in your company. Secondly, think about this. Our education system, we have fourth graders who are the canaries in the coal mine. They're kind of the direction we're headed, who are reading 48. Job creators want to come to a state where there's a solid education system. So we have to, part of creating and rebutting the crazy idea of the MEDC is create an alternative with economic gardening, a better education system, and reduce the burden of hidden regulation, like I was talking about earlier, the Green New Scam. Because we all pay extra in the rates from the Green New Scam, but who else does? Job creators, manufacturers, and others. And all those things we have to repeal back, and we have to fix Michigan. We have to make it great again. It takes a leader who can get it done, who can get elected, and who actually does something when they get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Carla Wagner, the state of Michigan hands out hundreds of millions of dollars in hopes that a company will come to Michigan, and many times the jobs just aren't there. What protections would you give the taxpayers if you are governor?
Yeah, so like we talked about the MEDC programs like that, I do think they need to be gone. We need to eliminate those. We have more than enough business here in Michigan, and unfortunately, we do seem to pay other companies a lot of money to come into Michigan, and then we give them a ton of tax abatement, specifically property tax abatement. But we never offer that to the companies that are here in Michigan, that have built Michigan. And I think if we're going to give any kind of subsidies to those, we should start giving subsidies to the companies that are here in Michigan right now, giving them an opportunity to expand and to grow, because usually they have a proven track record. They've been here a while, they're doing something in the community. If they want to expand, if they want to grow, I think it's them that should be given those subsidies if we're going to be handing any of those out. It used to be that people had to borrow money from the bank or go and raise capital investment or something. I don't know why the government is giving out taxpayer dollars for private industry. So that's an issue, another issue altogether. But I think the corporations that are here in Michigan should get first shot at any handouts that are going to be given out, whether it be a small loan or something, to encourage them so that they can provide more jobs for the people here in Michigan. We need to get people off welfare and off unemployment. And I think property tax elimination for those businesses will help certainly do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Ralph Reben, under the current model, the state offers hundreds of millions of dollars up front. They hope that the jobs and the business and it'll all come, but many times it's proven it doesn't. What will you do as governor? How will you change this?
Great question. Man, every time I'm touching this, it goes off. Can you hear me? Testing.
No, he's turning them up and down based, so when you're touching it and you're not, it's not your turn, that's why it's not.
What about the other microphone? That's your microphone, so that's why you need it. There you go.
All right, great question. For those of you who may not know what the MEDC, I think I heard it, but just for clarification, MEDC stands for the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. My friends, it is an agency for termed out Democrats. We're going to close it 100%. It's gone. And not only are we going to close it, let me give you an example why we're going to close it. The MEDC approved a $20 million handout to a company called Global Link. That company was run by Faye Bodine, who happened to be Governor Whitmer's donor, but MEDC approved her money before she ever registered the company. Now, I don't know about you, that's corruption, folks. And not only will we end that, but the next Attorney General is going to, under my suggestion, prosecute people who are misusing your money. All of us remember Obama's shovel-ready jobs. Nothing came from it. All of us remember, at least you're my age, you remember in Allen Park, Michigan, they were going to take those empty buildings, turn them into Hollywood studios. Everybody was excited. And guess what? There was not one movie that was filmed. This is corruption at its worst in Michigan, and it's got to end. So we are going to take those folks to court.
Thank you so much. We begin this round with Tom Leonard. This should be an interesting question. If you were to compare your first 100 days as governor to the current administration under Gretchen Whitmer, what specific economic development policy would you end on day one? What would you keep, and what would you replace it with, so that people at home can say, hey, this governorship is a lot different than the one we just had?
Can you hear me? Okay, so is it on?
I think we need to have the,
Sorry, guys.
it's not your fault, this, our audio engineer over there, I think, needs to bring up, it's the final one on the, Mr. Tom Leonard's microphone. All right, I'm gonna give you mine.
Let's do that. Can I use it?
No, it's on. You said it down. I heard it.
I think that's mine.
I'm sorry, guys. Can you hear me? Okay. So, first things first, we always get this question, what will you do on day one? And I want to be a realist, because most of the stuff that we're talking about tonight, it's going to require legislative approval, which is exactly why we need a Republican majority in the House and Senate. So it doesn't just stop with the governor's office. I can tell you what is going to happen on day one, though. Michigan will have a new state police colonel. 98.5% of the state troopers in this state have lost confidence in the current colonel, yet he still has a job. Day one, he needs to be gone. The biggest issue, I think, that's going to be the difference between me and the current governor, I want, and I may have mentioned this earlier, I was asked earlier, a couple weeks ago, what is the number one thing? They said, Tom, if you become the state's next governor, what is the one thing, if you only get to accomplish one thing, what is it? And I was very clear, third grade reading scores. We have got to do something for these children, and frankly, I believe this is going to be an education election in 26. I am proud to have Nikki Snyder on the State Board of Education, chairing our education coalition. And I am sick and tired of Democrats taking the lead on this issue. You want to talk about economic development, we are not going to have it if our kids can't read. We've got to focus on that issue. I'm going to make it my top priority out of the gate.
Thank you, Tom Leonard. Same question to Eric Nesbitt. What specific, in your first 100 days, economic development policy would you end? That is from the current administration. What would you replace it with?
Boy, we got to do a 180 here in Michigan. Under this governor, what she's done to increase the cost of living for Michigan families, destroy businesses from whether the COVID lockdowns or the crushing regulations from Lansing need to end, and the way she's destroyed education in the state needs to be turned around. And it's not going to happen with Jocelyn Benson next year. I mean, this is somebody that allowed a Chinese national to vote last year in our elections. We can't have her anywhere close to the governor's office next year. And so, on day one, there's a few items that need to happen right away. One is to make sure that we sign in and join with President Trump on providing school choice for every parent here in the state of Michigan. When only 1 out of 5 state workers are even showing up part of the time at the office, they got to show up on day one and actually start working again. And when you hear from businesses talking to a job creator down in southeast Michigan. They're trying to build a restaurant in a commercial area. They had a building there before, and Governor Whitmer's bureaucrats from Lansing says you can't build that here because there's a mud puddle out back. It rained last night, and they called it a wetland. You got to go line by line through our permitting, our regulations, and throw out thousands of them that aren't needed anymore to make sure that those that are needed to provide specific timelines and do that with spending. And it's going to be up to us to make sure that our families can make it here in Michigan, our job providers can make it here in Michigan again, and most importantly, our kids can make it here in Michigan.
Eric, thank you so much. Same question to Mike Cox, and it's comparing your first 100 days to this administration when it comes to economic development policy.
Well, Tom, I think it's fair to say that when we're the worst record in the nation in job creation, we're 48th or 9th every month in unemployment, there's really nothing to keep. So let me tell you what I would do on day one without the legislature being required, because I view it differently. Because when I was Attorney General and the legislature wouldn't act to go after the utilities and increase rates, I sued the utilities and saved $3 billion for ratepayers and job creators. And when the legislature wouldn't act against Blue Cross, I sued Blue Cross in order to reduce healthcare costs. So there are a number of things to do. Brother Eric here mentioned the first one, which I mentioned earlier. Number one, opt Michigan into President Trump's school choice tax credit. So all of you would have more ability to send your children or grandchildren to schools of choice. Number two, I would return all state workers to the office like the folks who work for me have to do, and like most of all you have to do every day. Number three, I would eliminate DEI in state government. I fought and was part of a group that enacted an affirmative action ban that this group has been ignoring the Constitution on. I would order an end of DEI in state government and any subdivision, which means local towns, villages, and cities. I've lost count, sorry. Number four, I would end the secret cost, the hidden cost of regulation. By that I mean a governor can, through the people he or she appoints, make a huge difference in the regulatory scheme. For instance, if you're trying to build a business or a new home and you have to wait for months to get a wetland approval from the DEQ, from Eagle or the DEQ, what are you going to do? You're going to go elsewhere. Part of our problem is that we are a job deterrent to so many outside job creators and internal job creators like myself and others, which is we over-regulate. It's a secret tax. The governor by himself or herself can make a difference there. Leadership matters. So please, go to my website, Mike Cox 2026, review it, and elect someone, nominate someone who will fight for you to make Michigan great again, who's actually beat Democrats and done things when he got there. Thank you.
Mike Cox, thank you. Carla Wagner, same question. Compare your first 100 days in office if you were to win the gubernatorial race to this current administration. What specific economic development policy would you eliminate on day one, and then what would you replace it with?
Okay, so we are a bankrupt state. We do not have a balanced budget. We need to cut about $20 billion of spending. We need to go to part-time legislation. We need to do everything we can to save our state. We need to eliminate property tax once again, because that will be the one thing that will save our homes, our farms, and our businesses. We need our businesses here so that we have jobs. So my very first thing that I would do is probably start working on cutting that budget, going to part-time legislation, putting a moratorium on bills and on spending until we can figure out how Michigan is regulated and what bills are running Michigan, because right now we don't even know. So it's very difficult to think of one thing that I would do to address the economy, but I do think it is property tax elimination. I can't do that as a governor, but I would certainly keep pushing for it for everybody here in the state of Michigan. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla Wagner. Ralph Rebant, same question. First 100 days in office. What would you do? How would you contrast that to Governor Whitmer's administration in regards to economic development policy?
Excellent. I would look at removing